Hello and welcome to the first video in the Space Invaders series here. And so this game that we're going to create is a Space Invaders replica. And so if you've never played Space Invaders, you should go and play it. One of the classics from 1981, I think, and definitely one of the first games that really took a nation by storm, especially in Japan. Supposedly they ran out of sort of the $1 or Hyakuen coins because so many people were playing Space Invaders at the arcade that they used up all the 100 yen coins from banks, and so they had to print more. And also they started instituting time limits and age restrictions on arcades to stop those darn kids from wasting their money and time when they should be studying. And instead they were playing Space Invaders. So there's a lot of history here. They've also, one of the first games that had actually animated sprites. And so that's what we're going to look at in this game, is how do you create some animated sprites so that our enemies, not only do they move left and right and down on the screen, but themselves, they sort of kind of, I don't want to say walk, I don't want to say fly, but they have definite internal movement. And so we'll look at how that is sort of works out. All right, so we've got our standard setup here. It's a 2D game, so I've got it in 2D mode. We're going to set the view here a little bit different. So I'm just going to go down to the build settings. We'll build it for the PC. And under player settings, and I always forget where this is, but this is what we're going to be dealing with here. And it's just always hidden under, if you got to get rid of this default native resolution, and we're going to manually change this, and we're going to do sort of a sort of rectangular, like a standing rectangle. So 600 on the width and a little bit higher on the height. So 960 there, okay? So it's more of a squarish sort of thing. So we'll just set that, close that up there, our build settings. To get the proper view here, we just have to change this from 4:3 to our standalone. You can see there's our 600 by 960. And there we go. So it's going to be more of a vertical one, because we're going to need our height here for our vertical shooter. Now we'll just set a few other things up here. Our main camera, I'm going to leave it as it is. One thing I've noticed is, this weight goes off to 5 or to 1,000. Probably don't need that. Just creates more distance. I'm going to set the color here just to black, because that's what it was in the original. And we'll basically set that up. Now, we could put sort of a template in there to let us know, but I think you sort of have a good idea that the top rows here will be our alien area. We could probably have a score and something else up here. There was, if we get to it, an alien that came across once in a while for bonus points. And then down here you had your shields, okay? And so we'll be able to put those in, and of course along the bottom was where your player was, okay? So that's sort of your basic layout there. So what we want to do is actually create our sprites. Now I've actually been able to find on, just searching, just went for a GIF here I found, the sprites. I just sort of searched for sprites. This is the sheet here, just the fonts, Invaders for Sprites. Now I might have to, when you sort of look at that, it's a little hard to see here, but there's the different shapes. Looks like each one I can use. It's a little hard to see, but there's also the player. All right, the player shape looks like the UFO there. There might be an explosion. Now I don't see there's a little bit of this here, which I think is the shield, and so we'll have to see about that. We might have to do something different with that, but we've got our basic enemies here. Okay, now this was a GIF that I found. I went into Photoshop, converted it into a PNG so that we can have our transparency, which is important, and just brought it into Unity. So here it is sitting in Unity. Now we haven't really talked about sprites per se. So if you do click on it, you've got all your import settings here, and it defaults to a sprite 2D and UI, which is what we want. Now the key thing here is a sprite mode, and you can bring them in individually. Obviously a sprite sheet makes things a bit easier, but we need to split them up. We need to slice it. And so what you need to say is that it's a multiple sheet, all right? And then you just go to the sprite editor. Generally, we'll be okay. We should be pretty good here. What we'll do is hit slice, and we'll do automatic and see how it goes. Now you can, after it finishes, you can make some changes. So there it is there. Oops. Okay, there we go. And it looks like it's done a pretty decent job on these. Now there's a few of them, and it's a little bit tricky to see with these white on sort of a checkerboard here. You could go through and you can modify these. You should be able to, I think. There we go. And just sort of go around. Now I'm not going to spend too much time here. We can go back later, and if there's one that's not quite right or it's been truncated, we can fix it. So you can, that's sort of on you guys. You can modify these if they're too small or they appear truncated, okay? Now the one that we're going to use is somewhere down here. Again, it's hard to see. I think that's him there. And we're going to pull him in. So all you have to do is apply. And miracles of miracles, there are all your sprites. And I sort of went ahead and figured out 42 was the one. And all I'm going to do is just drag him in. There he is. And I mean, our positioning at the moment, that will be okay. So basically we've got our sprite already in our game, and we'll talk about the other ones later on. What we're going to want to get now is some movement on him, and again, you know, going back to Pong, going back to Breakout, our movement here is going to be very similar. So in order to get it to move, as you know before, we need to add a rigid body. So we'll do physics 2D, rigid body 2D, and we'll set gravity scale to 0. Good, and I think we can leave everything else there. Then we want to add our script. All right, so we're going to create a C# script. Let's call this player movement. Now, let's see here, open that up. I got 2 here, but anyways, okay. MonoDevelop will open in a second. And basically, I've just taken my script from Pong. Now you could take your one from Breakout. It would be basically the same thing. Okay, so player movement here, I have taken it, and so I'm going to just paste it in. Hit Control, just zoom in a little bit here. You know, we're just going to modify this, and so it shouldn't be any different than what you've done before. So player, well, let's call this player speed, just to make it again. Player position, that should be fine. Vector 2, start. So again, the game object transform.position.y, and of course this one will be our horizontal. And like I said, if you grabbed your one from the Breakout game, that wouldn't be any difference. Now I'm going to have to change this up a little bit because my X value is going to change and my Y value is going to be fixed. And I'm just going to go back and fix that. And that should be basically it. So let's just go back to Unity and figure out these numbers first. So my player seems to be a good spot for him. And so maybe I'll just change his name while I'm at it here. So this is our player. And I'm just going to clean this up here. So let's just center him. And it looks like it should be about -4. I don't think it will matter. Okay. And so there's our Y position. Now we know that's going to be -4. So I'm just going to set that to -4F. Okay, and your mileage might vary. And it should be, that should be centered. So let's just take our move tool and just see roughly where he needs to go. So it should be centered. So we're looking at -2.75, roughly 2.75, close enough. And that should be 2.75. Good, okay, so that's good enough. So we'll just clamp it between those ones. Okay, so I'm going to go back. So minus 2.75. I'll just put an F there, and 2.75 F. And let's just see how this works. Save it. Go back to Unity. And, you know, as you get better and better at this, I mean, oops, did I apply the script? Probably not. You know, these things get easier and easier, and you just keep doing the same thing over and over again almost. And so, you know, life becomes a little bit easier. Now, obviously, we do have a bit of a problem. It jumped over to the side. And why did it do that? So -4 was the Y. So I'm just going to make sure I'm not maximizing on play. Okay, so it jumped right to -2.75 on the Y, and it can't, by the looks of it, be coaxed back. So let's just see what's going on here. I'm just going to pause it. And of course, I wasn't really thinking here. This needs to change to X position, transform.position X, and X position. Okay, so of course, when you do grab code, you have to make sure that you make all the changes. There we go. Now, with the famous Fleming guarantee here, let's just see. There we go. And it looks like it's clamping fine, going from edge to edge. And we've got our player movement there. Good. So let's see what we're going to do next. You know, maybe start bringing in enemies or maybe getting it shooting. Haven't quite decided yet, but we will come back for another video. Good. We've got a scene already started here. All right. That would be good time to save the scene if you haven't done it already. So make sure you save your scene. Must exit play mode, of course. File, save scene. And we'll just call this game. And probably we should spend a bit of time cleaning things up as well, but I'll do that on my own time, not on your dime. All right. But you can clean things up as well. All right. See you in the next video.